People were lined up outside of the tailgating lots in South Bend before the sun came up. There is snow on the ground tonight. Notre Dame and Indiana kick off the playoff 3 games tomorrow. Are we go Big Ten? Go Penn State. Go Buckeyes.
No.
Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten.
See, I'm cool.
Go IU.
I'm cool with conference rooting in college. Don't ask me to division root in the NFL. Are you the same way?
I hate everybody.
No. I'm one for all and all for one.
There you go.
You really would want the Raiders to make a deep run in the playoffs. You would be happy with that if they were to do it.
I just worry about my team.
No, he meant the opposite. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't stand. I'm so happy the Lions are basically out of it now because everyone was so. Oh my God, Dan Campbell's cute. Oh my God, he's so great. Oh my God, I run through a brick wall. Oh my God, Jared Goff should be MVP. Oh my God, Detroit. Screw Detroit.
Screw the Bears.
Can't stand Detroit. Screw the Bears. I
great
agree with
city.
you too. I hate the Bears too.
Shout out Isaac. He's a big Lions fan, and every week, regardless if the Lions are playing the Bears, and ironically they play them on Sunday, he's always screw the Bears guy. All right, sorry. So you are go Big Ten. Go Kevin Warren.
I am go Big Ten.
Okay.
I mean, I am go Kevin Warren too because his success is.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Good point.
My team's success is poignant on his success. So I'm the biggest Kevin Warren fan you'll ever meet. Don't hate me.
Okay, so along those lines, because I'm not a SEC. I'm like, whatever team my team.
Whatever team I'm betting for.
Well, that also comes into play as well.
Money line.
Hey, your heart and your wallet when they meld together.
Oh, is there anything better?
Probably getting divorced. So back to it's true.
That's a great one.
I mean, so let's say, take out Oregon. 3 teams playing this weekend. 2 of the 3 win. How does that benefit Nebraska?
If 2 of the 3 Big Ten teams win?
Yeah. So so the Big Ten goes 2-1.
Okay. So I'll tell you why. Because if the Big Ten can win as many games as possible, right, it boosts the value of the Big Ten, not only just the teams who won the games, but in my opinion, all the teams in the Big Ten, because it's looked at as a more favorable conference, right? My biggest example is this. When Alabama lost to Vandy, what was the conversation? It wasn't Bama sucks and Bama's terrible. The convo was, wow, Vandy's good this year. They got Diego Pavia. Oh my God, the bottom of the SEC is really competitive. If Vanderbilt can come out and beat Alabama, man, the SEC they're great. Now, Minnesota had a good season. I don't know if you watch a lot of Golden Gopher football this year, but they were a pretty damn good team. Okay, they weren't great, but they were pretty good.
Yeah, they screwed me when they blew a game at Rutgers. But continue on.
They play Penn State. They should have won that game. They lose that game. If Penn State,
think about it, they could also beat Michigan if they wouldn't have got hosed.
Yeah. Oh, that was a terrible call on the onside kick. Awful. So, if they had beaten Penn State, what would the narrative been? Penn State's terrible. Penn State shouldn't be in the playoff. How can a 10-2? You're going to put a 10-2 team, Penn State team in the playoff? They lost to Ohio State at home, and they lost to Minnesota. Right? That's the difference between the two conferences, because no one wants to talk about, well, Vanderbilt beat Alabama, but Vanderbilt also lost to Georgia Southern. That wasn't brought up. It was brought up. No. The bottom of the SEC is great, but if Penn State were to have lost, they would have been put in the gutter, and you would have seen people protesting for them not to be in the playoff. And so if the Big Ten, to a long roundabout way to answer your question, if the Big Ten were to win these games, it boosts the prestige of the conference, which makes us look upon the Big Ten better, which means that with Nebraska, regardless of who they play, a Big Ten win just means more. Period. That's how I see it. So yes, I am conference rooting. You just disagree with that entirely? Do you think
I'm not a conference rooting guy.
Do you think any of that matter? Like, do you think the SEC bias is going to scam Pat regardless?
If Indiana winning tonight, how's that benefit Nebraska? That's how I look at it.
Are you recruiting against them? You want them to lose. You wish them the worst.
That's a good point.
Now, outside of part of what you mentioned, outside of I think the Big Ten is good. I mean, the Big Ten is a very good football conference. It needs a national title, but it's a very good football conference that maybe before the new TV deal, I would have been like, okay, man, I got to stand up for the Big Ten. But now the Big Ten can kind of stand on its own.
I agree with
because it's basically turning into a 2-conference. Where I root for the Big Ten, kind of along your lines of a Big Ten win means something, is it helps you become that 5th or 6th team in the playoff when they go to 16 because you're out of the Big Ten. So you can, if you have a good season, you can live off the reputation of the league and maybe get a bonus if you haven't played your way in.
Sure.
And you're 9-3 instead of 10-2.
So
that's where I would go, man, I am pro Big Ten. But when it comes to teams on the field, I pick and choose. I mean, are you rooting for Ohio State?
Yeah. Because you don't think there would be a negative impact if Tennessee, who is considered to be the off top of my dome, right, 3rd best team? They're the shoot, why am I blanking? Texas, Georgia, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the 3rd best team. We all look at Ohio State as the 2nd best team in the Big Ten. If Tennessee were to go on the road,
you really want that insufferable fan base to enjoy a playoff victory at home?
But if Tennessee, the 3rd best team in the SEC, were to go on the road and defeat Ohio State, this $20 million roster, you don't think that the SEC bias would become more insufferable than it already is?
It already is going to be.
No, because Ohio State is a separate brand. This would have nothing to do with the Big Ten. This would be all about Ohio State.
America would win.
I think no, they would. I disagree. I think because Ohio State is a part of Ohio State is a part of the Big Ten.
So we would look down on the Big Ten if Ohio State loses tomorrow night.
Yes, because they're the 2nd best team in the Big Ten, and some would have argued before the Michigan game they were the best team in the Big Ten. They would be the 2nd best team losing to the 3rd best team in the SEC. That Georgia and Texas would be like, well, we kick Tennessee's butt all the time. That's what it would look like. That's what the narrative would be. I don't want that to happen. If Ohio State was playing a Big 12 team, I'd be rooting for the Big 12 team because
you went to a Big 12 school.
Yeah, because screw them. Because I don't want Ohio State to win. But the fact that they're playing an SEC team,
yeah,
what you said.
I know. The fact they're playing an SEC team, I want them to beat an SEC team because I can't stand the SEC.
Okay, what would change the?
I can't stand Notre Dame, so I'm rooting for Indiana.
So what would change the narrative more? Ohio State losing tomorrow night or Oregon losing to Tennessee?
Oh,
if Tennessee were to beat both of them.
No, this isn't Tennessee. This is Ohio State or Oregon. The fallout from getting beat.
Who would
by the way, it'd be like Tennessee, just advance to the final. You don't need to play in the semis.
Who would have the bigger fallout between the two programs?
In terms of the general vibe about the Big Ten.
Oh. I think it would be Ohio State. Because Ohio State is a Big Ten team.
Some people forget Oregon
is in the Big Ten. Ohio State is a Big Ten team. There's a difference.
I like that.
There's a difference. Oregon plays in the conference. Ohio State is the Big Ten.
Oregon is the new Ohio State. Money, facilities, success, coaching.
Coach is a dude.
Yeah. No, all there.
But I would think Oregon because you would go, well, you know what? They were handed a cake schedule. They just rolled right through that cake schedule. Ohio State wasn't that good. I guess Penn State was not that very good. They play a SEC team, and look what happened.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but if Oregon got upset, and especially if it was like Tennessee. Now, Ohio State might be a little different because you're like, they played a one-score game, and, maybe Ohio State is that enigma that's been the whole year. They get a reprieve, and they're playing in a quarterfinal game. I think if it was Tennessee beat Oregon, it'd be like, Big Ten. No. You know what, Big Ten? Next year, you're only going to get 1.5 bigs.
I think if either of them lost, it would be a massive deal. You just can't lose. Look, if Oregon loses to Texas, well, that's just a national championship game. That has nothing to do with SEC versus Big Ten. That just has everything to do with these two teams are playing each other. But when you get to these beginning rounds of the college football playoff, and you are essentially these two teams aren't even, and we're booking, and one's a 7-point favorite, and we're doing conference versus conference, and so on and so forth. That's when you start having impact matter. I mean, if SMU were to beat Penn State, you don't think we would look at the ACC a little bit? You don't think there'd be people who are ACC fans banging on the table, saying like, "Look, they came in second, and they beat." And they beat your second place team.
But you know what my response would that be? Hey, that ain't about the Big Ten. It's about they have a football coach that can't win big games.
Look,
he just happens to coach at a Big Ten school.
I think both things can be true. I think you can deflect it, and I think you can admit it. And I think that no matter, look, someone's going to take a flag and they're going to plant it, and they're going to say,
wouldn't that be great if it was a Tennessee defensive lineman that weighs $3.40?
Yeah,
they have to, right?
They got to plant the flag.
Do you think if Ohio State gets upset tomorrow night that there are police surrounding the O in the middle of the field?
Did you hear about the OHIO Act? This.
Oh yeah, the
lawmaker tried to pass a law that said it's a felony. It's a sportsmanship. OHIO Sportsmanship Act is what they said it was, or whatever. What a bunch of.
Go ahead, say it, because it's true.
I just I'm
we
not.
got a dump button.
I want to keep my job, but
you're fine.
Soft as Charmin. Soft as Charmin.
All right. Chris writes into the Equitable Bank inbox. He says, "Go Buckeyes." Should tell you first that. Chris is in Louisiana, so the hate runs deep for the SEC schools. He says, yes, It needs to be all hands on board. Your co-host is right. If Tennessee beats Ohio State, all the SEC will talk about how superior the SEC is over the Big Ten. It's just how these people are down here. We want all Big Ten teams to win. We need an all Big Ten championship game. I haven't looked that closely at the bracket, but I assume that is a possibility that we have teams on each side of the bracket that can meet in the championship. See, I wish there was more hate on hate crime in the Big Ten. Like the South, there is a ton of hate on hate.
That's for sure.
We don't have the abundance of the hate on hate in this conference.
Listen, we're in a war right now between the SEC and the Big Ten. We don't get the respect we deserve. Okay? The fact
they have four teams though.
Let me ask you a question.
4 against 3.
Well, no. I agree that.
I don't know how to run that defense, but I kind of like that number
here
over the other one.
Do you think if a 9-3 if there was a 9-3 Big Ten team, that they would get with similar wins to Alabama? So let's say they had, because you can make a similar schedule in the Big Ten compared to what Alabama had in the SEC. You can have it. You can have teams, play Oregon and Ohio State and Iowa and whatnot. So let's say a Big Ten team with a similar strength of schedule, with similar wins but bad losses than Alabama. If you put those two teams together, do you think that Big Ten team, whatever the brand it may be, would have the same respect Alabama's getting?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do the 3 losses of the Big Ten team look like? Were they scheduled games?
Okay.
Or the ones they had no control over, which the conference game?
I'll give right here. You and I are on lockstep. They lose to Penn State.
Okay.
They lose to Minnesota.
Okay.
And they lose to Michigan State. But they beat Ohio State, and they beat Ohio State, and they beat Oregon.
Oh, then I think you're in the playoff at 9-3. If you were matched up against Alabama because when you threw in Oregon,
sure,
I would
I'll back off. I'll back off because they don't have as good as. So they beat Ohio State, and what's the other? Well, I already gave the Penn State.
What if they beat Indiana?
Well, they beat Indiana. That's a good one. So they beat Indiana. They beat Ohio State.
And Indiana has been ranked all year?
Yes.
I would still.
And we're Alabama and the Big Ten, same things. You don't think Bama would get the benefit of the doubt?
So you have 3 wins, like 3 high-profile wins?
Yes.
I think that puts you over the top.
I don't think it's necessarily about the resumes that they've built, because I don't think the hypothetical my point isn't that. My point isn't the hypothetical, because we can build a resume, right? That a 9-3 team could get over Alabama, and that's not my point. My point is just the brands, the league and the brands, right? 2 similar resumes, 2 9-3 teams, one in the Big Ten, one in the SEC, one Alabama, one not Alabama.
So give me this. So that the brands didn't work here, because SMU is not the brand that Alabama is. So the committee, good job. What's the brand they're up against in the Big Ten?
Okay, I'll give it to you.
So, okay.
Iowa.
Probably Alabama.
Okay. So what brand do you have to get to
have a head-to-head conversation?
Because what if
Alabama, Michigan, basically same resume which you laid out.
So who's going to get in then if they had similar resumes in both 3 lost teams? On that committee?
What would you think the brand is? What do you think, Alabama or Michigan's a bigger brand?
I know.
You want me to tell you what I think?
As of recently, when they just want to, we're talking over the last 15 years, it's Bama. But if we're talking historically, we're just talking all of college football, it's Michigan.
It's the Maize and Blue. I would say even over the last 15 years, even with their downfall where they were not on the level of Alabama, Michigan is a gigantic brand.
No, I'm with there. I'm right. I think they're a bigger brand than Alabama historically.
Now Alabama has created a brand
yes.
where they went desolate for a while. They have now created the brand. But there's another part of this discussion. Well, this is a good discussion because then it becomes, what's Alabama's brand if the guy that basically took the brand to the top of college sports is sitting on a game day set and not on the sidelines?
What's Alabama's brand now that everything's legal?
Well, they got to compete. I mean, they were on the cusp of going to the playoffs. So I'm not going to say they just fell off the map. But the vibe of Alabama with Nick Saban, the vibe with Kellen DeBoer.
Oh, totally different.
Yeah.
Night and day. But I think you have
this show loves Kalen.
But you have to understand, right? I think that, and I truly stand by this. If you had two teams that had if you had Alabama and you had a team of, let's say Michigan. You had Alabama and you had Michigan, and they had similar resumes, and they both had 3 losses in the same manner. I truly believe Alabama would get in over Michigan. Would it be a landslide? No. Would it be close? Absolutely. Would there be people on both sides of the fence, not only across the country, but in the College Football Playoff Committee? Yes. But I think at the end of the day, Bama would get in over Michigan because of the SEC bias and because of just Bama's inherent bias and the fact that Nick Saban is on ESPN, blabbing off at the mouth, and his best friends are on the game day set, and they're right there with him saying those things as well. They would get in over. If the Big Ten sweeps the SEC and all their college football playoff matchups, that could change because we can look at it and say, look, when they went head to head and when we were comparing the best of the best, who won? It was the Big Ten. And so that conference is better than that conference. And that is good for the Big Ten. And what is good for the Big Ten is good for Nebraska.
From that standpoint, I absolutely agree with you.
So that's why I'm conference rooting. If you don't want a conference, I get it. Listen, when the Big Ten is up on a hill eating grapes and drinking wine and having a great time and having a picnic, and they know that they're the top dog, yeah, let's start the conference hate. Because the SEC knows that right now, and they have a ton of conference hate. But if there was a shift in power and the Big Ten was the top dog and everyone was always, it just means more, it's just different, then there would be conference hate. But right now, they got to get to the point where they're there.
All right.